Hey there, this is Dr. Evan Osar, developer of the Integrative Movement System and author of the Corrective Exercise Solutions to Common Hip and Shoulder Dysfunction. Thanks so much for tuning into this video series of Integrative Movement Insider discussing labral tears and FAI in your higher level individuals and athletes. In the last few series of Integrative Movement Insider, we've been discussing using the hips with older clients that have spinal conditions. What's interesting about our approach is that our approach with high-level individuals and athletes is no different because they often demonstrate the exact same things we see in our older population. Yes, they're younger. Yes, they're more athletic. Yes, they can do more things. And yes, many of them are actually more dysfunctional than our older clients. And they develop issues. They're developing issues earlier in their life than a lot of our older clients. In fact, I just consulted with a 13-year-old dancer that already has a labral tear and this condition called FAI. So let's first discuss what labral tears are and what FAI is, and then what our approach is to helping these clients develop their functional goals. Now, if you think about the hip joint, it's a ball and socket, right? The ball, femoral head, sits inside the acetabulum of the socket of the pelvis. Now, when all things are well around the hip, like the hip has optimal alignment and control, the muscles are controlling the joint appropriately, the ball just glides and spins inside the acetabulum. Now, the labrum is a fibrocartilage rim that just sits around this acetabulum to help support the femoral head within the acetabulum and helps keep the synovial fluid inside the joint. Now, many of our clients will start to get this thing that we're seeing more and more frequently called labral tears. And it's a tear of that labrum as it attaches around the acetabulum or that socket of the pelvis. Now, if they have enough dysfunction for long enough, and again, like I said, long enough is relative because I'm seeing 13-year-old girls that already have this condition called FAI or femoral acetabular impingement. What that technically is that they're starting to develop bone spurs either around the femoral head or the ball and or around the socket. They're developing these bone spurs. And then when they go into flexion, usually flexion, adduction, internal rotation, and or they're sitting long periods of time, they get impingement of these bony structures. So that's technically what FAI is. Now, what's the most common cause of these issues? And we've seen this in almost all the clients that we consult with. And I've seen thousands of individuals with labral tears and or femoral acetabular impingement. And here's a common thing I find with probably about 95% of them. Their femoral head is either too compressed, there's too much myofascial gripping around the hip joint. And this is even in 13-year-old girls I consult with. And or the femoral head is too far forward and superior. Again, because of too much myofascial gripping. They're overusing their muscles for support. And this often comes from cues such as grip your glutes, squeeze your glutes, tighten your glutes as tight as you can, like you're squeezing $1 million between your cheeks. Those cues tend to drive the femoral head too far forward into the socket, over compress the femoral head within the socket, and or drive it too far anteriorly or superiorly. And ironically enough, I should say not so ironic, most of the degenerative changes that we see in the hip usually occur on the superior surface and or the anterior surface where that femoral head is being driven too far forward in the acetabulum. So, the most common thing we start to see with our clients, the first sign that something's going on with your hip is you start to get tightness. Yeah, I get this one hip that's always a little tighter than the other side. I need to stretch it a lot, I need to mobilize it a lot. My chiropractor or massage therapist or physical therapist needs to work on it a lot. Then we start to get soft tissue changes. So from tightness, we go into soft tissue changes. That's where we start to see things like labral tears, and that's why 13-year-old girls are coming to me with labral tears in their hips from playing soccer, from dancing, from exercising. So you start to have soft tissue changes. You start to create muscle imbalances around the hip. You start to create changes in the ligamentous structures around the hip as well. If you have this condition long enough, then your body will start to create bony changes. And that's what we call femoral acetabular impingement, where they start to create bone spurs around the femoral head and or acetabulum. Ultimately, if this goes on long enough, after FAI, you start to get degenerative joint disease. I just consulted with an individual, an active, strong individual, 35 years of age. He has this. He has labral tears, and he probably needs a hip replacement. He came and saw me after physical therapy failed about a year of physical therapy has failed him. So that's the kind of clients we get to see, is the people that fail traditional approaches, because by the time they come and see me, usually it's too late. If we can get them early enough, like this 13-year-old girl, we've been able to stop her from having her issues by developing an improved strategy for aligning and controlling her hip joint. So in the next 2 videos, we're going to talk about the principles of the integrative movement system. How do we work with these clients that have been diagnosed with labral tears and or FAI and have been cleared to exercise? And it's a very simple approach. What we really do is teach them how to align and control the hip joint more optimally. So I'll share a strategy, a very successful strategy we use with our own clients, whether they are 13 years old and a dancer, high-level dancer, or they're a 35-year individual that needs a hip replacement. So how do we work with them before they go get their hip replacement? And then how do we work with these clients to develop a better strategy after surgery, whether it be a labral tear and or joint replacement? Because what happens for a lot of our clients is they still have the same patterns that cause the degenerative hip in the first place, or the labral tear in the first place. So they still have problems after surgery. The ones that have been the most successful are the ones that are able to develop a more optimal strategy around aligning and controlling their hip joint. So I'm going to share 2 simple and easy patterns we use with our clients in the next 2 videos to help your client if they've been diagnosed with labral tear and or FAI. And generally, if your client just has general stiffness and tightness around their hip and they're on this path, it'll help those clients as well. This is Dr. Evan Osar, developer of the Integrative Movement System. Thanks for watching this edition of Integrative Movement Insider. We'll catch you next time.